You're watching DD India Global. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Our top stories. As Israel orders complete siege of Gaza, death toll touches 1,300 in fierce fighting between Hamas and Israeli forces. Russia pushes for two-state solution of Israel and Palestine, says Russia and the Arab League can help halt the bloodshed. Indian Prime Minister and Tanzania President hold bilateral talks in New Delhi, wide range of cooperation in agenda. And American academic Claudia Goldwin wins Nobel Prize for Economics, recognized for advancing understanding of women's labor market outcomes.
Work on long-term change in economic history, in particular the evolution of women's economic role.
Israel has ordered a complete siege of Gaza as it mobilizes reservists for 2 days after unprecedented attack by Hamas. Israel's defense minister Yoav Gallant has ordered the siege in retaliation for the Palestinian militant unprecedented surprise attack which began on Saturday. The total death toll on both sides has surpassed 1,300. Multiple explosions were seen in Gaza early on Monday morning. Israel formally declared war against Hamas on Sunday following the group's surprise attacks earlier on Saturday. In a fresh airstrike by Israel on the Gaza Strip, dozens of Palestinians were killed in Jabalia refugee camp on Monday. There are hundreds of fatalities. Scores have sustained severe injuries. Horror video clips feature bodies of Palestinians trapped in the debris of refugee camp. Evacuations and rescue work is on at the refugee campsite as we speak. Israel's military has said that there were approximately 1,000 terrorists who participated in the Hamas attack. In retaliation, Israel's defense forces have struck a large ammunition depot in Gaza and have destroyed some 653 Hamas targets so far. Over 100,000 reservists have so far reported on duty for Israel. The Israeli army chief has termed the attack as murderous terrorism.
The
state of Israel and the IDF are now responding to a criminal and cruel attack by Hamas. The intrusion of terrorists into the private homes of civilians from the Gaza Strip and the taking of women and children. This is murderous terrorism. Therefore, we are attacking, pursuing and harming anyone who took part in it. And that's how we will continue. I know that the past day has been hard. The price is heavy. I know there are many questions and much frustration. But the most important thing is that we are now focusing on going forward with assistance and resolving problems. We have civilians, security forces, our soldiers killed, injured, some of them are in the hands of the enemy. Therefore, this is a time for war, not for an operation, not for a round, time for war. And within this war, the IDF is strong, will act to its strength and will win and achieve its needed goals. For us, looking forward, it is expected that there will be days of long, complex fighting.
Meanwhile, the Islamic Jihad claims to have captured more than 30 Israelis. In exchange, the chief of the terror group has demanded release of its prisoners in Israeli jails. The chief of second largest militant group in Gaza Strip said the captives will not be repatriated till all our prisoners are released, unquote, referring to thousands of Palestinians who are in Israeli prisons. Israel's President Isaac Herzog has urged for national unity in his speech to the nation. He asked citizens to avoid spreading rumors that serve Hamas, has called the attack an unforgivable sin.
This heinous act, which began in the middle of Sabbath on a Jewish holiday, crossing the border to carry out the attack, is an unforgivable sign. a sign that was led not only by a murderous terrorist organization but by an evil axis whose base is in Iran and whose malignant cells repeatedly work to undermine us, our spirit, our sovereignty, and who we are as people, as a country. My brothers and sisters, we are in a war for our home and we will win.
And Israel's ambassador to India, Naor Gilon, expressed gratitude to India for standing in solidarity with Israel during the unexpected Hamas attack on Israeli towns on 7th October. He appreciated the support received from Indian Prime Minister and other dignitaries.
We are heartfelt from the huge support we got from India, from the Prime Minister, through a few ministers who called me, businessmen, civil servants, just people from the street. Our social media is full of people who are showing their support, and we appreciate it.
And the intense fighting between Hamas and Israeli forces continue. My colleague Kate Fisher is in Washington, D.C. to get us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Kate, we hear the Israeli authorities have turned to their key ally, United States, for more aid, particularly interceptor missiles.
Yeah, that's right. And the Biden administration has said, yes, we will help you, announcing that they are already moving warships towards Israel as we speak. The Israeli authorities asking the US to replenish the arsenal of interceptor missiles for the Iron Dome defense system. The Israeli government has asked for specific additional assistance as the country gears up for what it sees will be a prolonged conflict. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken said his country is working to fulfill specific requests from Israel for military assistance. The US already provides Israel with more than $3 billion in military assistance every year. And Antony Blinken added that much of the equipment from that funding is already in the pipeline to be sent to Israel. The US is also sending multiple military ships and aircraft closer to Israel to show its support. US President Joe Biden's ordered American weapons and warships, including an aircraft carrier, to be sent to help Israel and also to bolster regional defense efforts. The US President told the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Sunday during a call that additional assistance for the Israeli Defense Forces was en route and that more would follow in the coming days. Washington believes that Hamas's latest attack may have been motivated to disrupt a potential normalizing of Israel-Saudi Arabia ties. Well, here in the US, the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has called on China to support Israel after deadly attacks from Hamas. Mr. Schumer expressed his disappointment with Beijing, highlighting their lack of sympathy for Israel following the weekend's attack. In response to Hamas's Saturday assault, China has urged Israel to remain calm and to end hostilities to protect civilians, adding that the fundamental way out of the conflict lies in establishing an independent state of Palestine.
The ongoing events in Israel over the past few days are horrific. I urge you and the Chinese people to stand with the Israeli people and condemn these cowardly and vicious attacks. I was very disappointed, to be honest, by the foreign ministry statement that showed no sympathy or support for Israel during these troubled times.
Well, the US led a moment of silence at the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva on Monday to commemorate the lives of people killed in Israel. US Permanent Representative to the Council, Michelle Taylor, requested a minute of silence for victims of the Israel conflict and the Afghanistan earthquake. All but a handful of delegates stood up. Meanwhile, the seat for the Palestinian representative was empty. In view of the current situation, several international air carriers have temporarily suspended flights serving Tel Aviv. US air carriers, United Airlines, Delta Airlines and American Airlines said they'd suspended direct flights, as did Air France. Air India has also cancelled its flight operations to and from Tel Aviv until October the 14th. The airline said they're waiting for conditions to improve before resuming service. Well, several other countries have issued advisories for their citizens caught up in the conflict. South Korea has urged its citizens to urgently leave Israel. More than 1,000 Thai citizens have requested for evacuation after 12 of them were killed and 11 others kidnapped during the violence. Thailand is working with Jordan, Egypt and Malaysia to secure the release of its citizens taken hostage during the conflict, with over 1,000 Thai migrant workers looking to return home. Indonesia has also called for an end to the Israeli-Palestinian dispute. Israeli military and tanks were seen deployed near the Israeli borders with Lebanon on Monday, amid fears that fighting could escalate into a larger regional conflict. Israel and Lebanon's powerful armed group Hezbollah exchanged artillery and rocket fire on Sunday following the deadliest attack in years by Hamas on the country of Israel. DD India's Mia Alberti sent us this report from Beirut.
Well, we heard from Lebanese officials on Saturday only. They were one of the last countries to react to the attacks in Palestine, but their statement was one of utmost support for the Palestinian cause. As you know, Lebanon and Israel are still technically at war. They are still enemies. They don't recognize each other as states, and so it is natural that Lebanon would have this stance, but they did not at any point talk about Hezbollah connected to Iran here in Lebanon, or any type of military plans for the next few days. They just really send a message of support to Palestine and saying that what is happening in the last few days at the time and the last few hours, it is the responsibility of Israel, according to the Lebanese government. Well, I think there is a lot of apprehension here, because although we do know that scuffles between Hezbollah and Israel, or Hamas here in Lebanon and Israel on the southern border, it's something that Lebanese have grown accustomed to. The situation right now on the other side of the border is completely unprecedented, and so there's nothing that could lead any Lebanese to think that what is happening now in our southern.
Well, we can now cross directly to Israel, where DD India's correspondent Sarah Coates is reporting from the city of Tel Aviv. Sarah, things are moving at such a fast pace. Can you tell us the latest that you know from where you are?
Yes, hi Kate. Well, look, the situation on the ground, as you mentioned, it is moving extremely fast. There's a really weird sense right now. We're seeing so many military aircraft flying north, which is that way. The IDF says that it has instructed residents in the north on the border of Lebanon in a community called Kiryat Shimona to stay in their bomb shelters. They are all under the instruction to remain in these shelters. Also unconfirmed reports coming out that residents in southern Lebanon are being evacuated. Now, here on the ground, the death toll continues to rise, Kate. More than 800 Israelis have been killed over these last 3 days, and authorities are still counting bodies down in the south, where this nature rave was held over the weekend. Already the death toll there standing at more than 260 people. Now, a little earlier today, the IDF announced that a full blockade of Gaza is happening. This means no gas, no water, no electricity, and no food can enter the coastal enclave. And this is in a bid to really try and smother Hamas. Right now, there is a large-scale bombing bombing campaign going on in the Strip, with IDF trying to cripple Hamas, take out its weapons storage facilities and destroy these underground terror tunnels that they use to not only smuggle fighters but also store weapons there. So it certainly is a rapidly evolving story, Kate, and obviously one we're following very, very closely.
And you talk about those tunnels and the bombardment of Gaza. Do we have any indication about whether the hostages that are there, what's happening to them, and also whether the Israeli government has got any kind of control of its border yet? Are Hamas militants still able to enter Israel?
Well, look, what we are being told is that the southern border has been secured right now. There's a heavy build-up of troops, including IDF reserve soldiers. 300,000 of them have been called up in the last 48 hours, and that is the biggest number ever seen here in Israel. Now, Kate, with regards to these hostages, it is estimated that there are more than 100 Israelis being held captive by Hamas in the Gaza Strip. These include young women, old grandmothers, more than 80 years old, mothers with little babies. We did hear some unconfirmed reports a little earlier today that Qatar might actually be trying to mediate the release of some of these children. But these videos that have been flooding social media showing these people being taken into the coastal enclave is traumatic, to say the very least. And here on the ground in Tel Aviv, a number of emergency centres, Kate, have been set up for the families of these people missing. Pretty much everyone that you speak to knows somebody who cannot be found. The families and the loved ones of people who are unaccounted for are taking in personal effects such as toothbrushes, hairbrushes, just in a bid to get a DNA sample so that they can try and find potentially some closure as they search for those who are missing. But it really is an ongoing terrible situation here on the ground, and there really is collective mourning here in Tel Aviv as people try and come to grips with what has taken place over these last 3 days.
Sarah in Tel Aviv, DD India's correspondent in Israel, thank you very much. Well, Germany has also extended its support towards Israel. It's currently also reviewing its aid to Palestinian territories. German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier expressed support for Israel and the Jewish citizens of Germany that are stranded in Israel. The German development minister spoke about the German government's aid for Palestinians following the Hamas attacks on Israel. A plane from Tel Aviv has landed in Frankfurt on Monday, carrying terrified and grief-stricken German tourists back home from Israel. They were seen hugging their loved ones on their return to Germany, and they spoke about their frightening experiences of witnessing the strikes and the bloodshed up close. And they expressed how terrifying it was.
It's so hard to describe it. It's very hard because it's my first time that we have this situation with occupation people in Gaza.
Mm-hmm. So many kidnapped, young people. It's insane.
Yeah, I don't have enough words to tell you about the feelings.
The autocue's gone.
It's not safe, and it's just we don't know what will come. That's the worst. Yeah. So she comes here, but we don't know.
We don't know what
she will come back probably soon.
Unfortunately, I have to come for work to Germany, but my friends and family are back there. We're all safe at the moment where we live. Tension is quite high. A lot of uncertainty of what to do. We don't know. So I'm hoping to get back in 4 days. I don't know if there will be flights or what, but it's been a very unpleasant 2 days, very unsure of what's going on.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has called for a two-state solution for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. During talks in Moscow with the Arab League chief, Lavrov further said that the two-state solution is the only way forward for the peaceful coexistence of the two states as good neighbours.
There can be only one initiative, a decision on the settlement of Palestinian problem, which was adopted at the United Nations. This implies the peaceful coexistence of two states as good neighbors. Two states, Israel and Palestine. This is exactly what we talked about today. And this is the only initiative that can be on the table and that can be the subject of direct negotiations between the Palestinians and the Israelis.
Well, during the talks, Arab League chief Ahmed Abul-Gheit said he agrees about the need to stop the violence, but he also reiterated that such events would continue as long as the Palestinian problem remained unresolved. Let's take a listen.
I admit that we all do not approve at all of civilians being attacked, but all civilians, not civilians of a people or a state, and other civilians are not looked at with any interest. I completely agree with you on the importance and necessity of reaching an immediate ceasefire. All these events, although not this violent, will occur as a result of the lack of any political origin or attempt to settle the Palestinian issue in any way.
Well, that's all from me here in Washington, D.C. Now it's back to the studio in New Delhi and Shubendu.
And still to come on DD India Global. Children in Afghanistan in need of immediate shelter and food following deadly earthquakes.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
You're watching DD India Global. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. In the aftermath of the devastating 6.3 magnitude earthquake that struck Afghanistan, leaving a tragic trail of over 2,000 lives lost, United Nations, along with several nations, is mobilizing to provide much-needed aid to the affected region.
Afghanistan was hit by multiple earthquakes over the weekend, causing severe damage and loss of lives. In response, the United Nations Humanitarian Coordinator has swiftly approved a $5 million emergency reserve allocation from Afghanistan's Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. The allocation is said to be fully processed within the next 24 hours, aiming to provide immediate relief to the affected communities. As rescue operations continue in the earthquake-stricken city of Herat, the World Health Organization has expressed concern that the death toll is expected to rise.
The Ministry of Health in Afghanistan reported, and still they are counting, more than 2,500 deaths and more of thousands of people injured, different levels of injuries, which make us assume that the numbers are still growing and we do not have the final figures still now, as the assessments are ongoing. The search and rescue is still ongoing, so we are expecting these figures even to get worse.
The death toll in Afghanistan has gone up to 2,500, with more than 2,000 being injured. Women and children make up 2/3 of the victims of the recent earthquakes, and more than 1,300 households have been completely destroyed. As Afghanistan cripples back to life, China, Pakistan and Iran have pledged to send in relief materials and funds, but aid is being delayed by blocked routes and communication lines being down in the country.
Claudia Goldwin, an American economic historian, has been awarded the 2023 Nobel Prize in Economics for her significant contribution to the comprehension of women's employment outcomes in the labour market. Goldwin is the only third woman to receive this esteemed prize, formerly known as the Severages Riksbank Prize in Economic Sciences in memory of Alfred Nobel, and it's the final Nobel Prize of this year.
I work on long-term change in economic history, in particular the evolution of women's economic role and where we are today, and the fact that there's been enormous change and yet there are still large differences between women and men in terms of what they do, how they're remunerated and so on. And the question is, why is this the case? And that's what the work is about.
And that's all for this edition of DD India Global. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram. You can also find us online at ddindia.com. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Global. Namaskar.